is Bodo Hoenen. He's an experienced entrepreneur working in the education tech space. And his most recent startup focuses on an open source learning management system, which is combined with Google expertise, tools, and services. He has international entrepreneurial experience and has started companies or products within existing businesses in Africa, Europe, and the US. Please join me in welcoming Bodo to the stage.
Hi everyone. So our moonshot is about teaching the forgotten children. The kids that will never go to school and the kids that will never get a basic education. This little girl is likely never to go to school, and she'll end her life not knowing many of the questions she has. She'll not learn to read, and she'll not learn to write, and she'll forget her hopes, because this little girl will likely be married very soon and have children of her own. We simply cannot reach this girl. We simply cannot teach this girl. We cannot build enough schools to reach these kids, and we cannot train enough teachers. The time it will take to do so will leave millions forgotten. The amount of kids in this situation is astronomical. 50 million kids will never go to school. More than 250 million will remain illiterate if we do nothing. And most of these are little girls. They also live in challenging circumstances. There's no internet where they are. They have very little electricity, if any, and they have no traditional educational support. So our radical solution is to build an autonomous self-schooling platform that these children can use to empower themselves to teach themselves and empower them to teach their peers. A platform that is able to run on low-cost tablet devices and able to operate disconnected from the internet and traditional support. 18 months ago, a test was conducted. A group of children in a remote village in Ethiopia were given tablets loaded with mostly numeracy and literacy apps. They were just dropped off without any guidance and without any instruction, and just saw what happened. After a few hours, the first child managed to switch it on, and he taught the other kids how to switch them on. After about 2 weeks, they were each using about 50 apps each, navigating the device seamlessly. After about 3-4 months, they were all singing the ABCs. And after about 6 months, the first kid learned how to hack Android. We realized that over the 10-year mission of the project, that technology will drastically change, and we're building in line with that. We know, for example, that the low-cost devices we have will be 100 times more powerful. We know that the storage available to these devices will increase significantly. We also know that the cost of these devices will decrease significantly. We expect them to be far lower than $10 within the span of this project. And so the technology we're doing is a pretty lightweight framework. We want to build a platform that all educators can use to test their ideas, to deliver their ideas to a large audience, and to test their effectiveness and evaluate the effectiveness. And we want to do this using 6 key technologies. First of all, a content framework that standardizes content and makes it available to the platform so that the platform understands what the content's all about. Secondly, the on-device data store, which retains all the information about the child, her progress, her data usage, her preferences, her interests, what learning style she's got, things like that. This data is then used by the on-device recommendation engine, which guides the child through the content, and a supervised machine learning loop, which the child and or the educator can then use to review the data and review the logic being used by the recommendation engine. A backbone to much of what we're doing in our approach is mesh networking. We understand that many of these kids will never have a formal teacher, but we also know that these kids love teaching themselves and teaching their peers. And so the platform and the child will have the ability to search the network to find kids that they can learn from and kids that they can teach. In addition, we're providing a very natural interface for these children. We want it to be beautiful, natural, seamless. We want them to be able to have a conversation with the device, ask it questions, and it to provide them the answers. In sync with the recommendation engine, over time this will become more sophisticated. Wrapping this all up, it will have access to a library of content that is based on the connectivity of the device. When it's offline, it'll have access to the device, to the content that's on the device or SD cards. When it's connected to the mesh network, it will have access to any of the information that's within the mesh. And when it's connected to the open internet, it will have access to an online repository. This framework of technologies will be able to use the explosion of great educational content and provide these kids a mechanism as an automated self-learning mechanism to teach them anything they want. But this isn't really a technology problem. The technology that exists to solve this problem is already here. And this isn't an educational content problem because the content that exists to solve this problem already exists. But much of this content and much of this technology is housed within these closed silos. And so the radical approach we're taking is radical openness. We're approaching everyone and anyone that wants to help us. And we are asking them, let's work on this together, let's solve this problem together, and let's focus on these kids. Several months ago, we started to work on this, a growing group of volunteers working to solve this challenge. 3 months ago, and it was highlighted here, the X Prize announced that they were creating an incentive competition exactly for this problem. And thanks to the X Prize and many other organizations, this challenge is starting to get the attention that it deserves. In a few years, a platform will exist that can solve this problem. In a few years, we will have something that is able to teach these kids, and that's really exciting. Can you imagine what's going to happen when children who have absolutely no access to any education can suddenly start to learn anything they wanted to? Or kids growing up in conflict areas or in areas where open education is forbidden. If they can grow up learning lessons of efficacy, morality, and critical thinking, imagine when they become the leaders of their countries. Imagine, for example, we start to build a device, build a platform that works for these kids in these scenarios. Because something that works for them could work for anyone. And that is our wax. Thank you.
Now we're going to be opening it up to the panel for questions.
Right, there's a beautiful presentation addressing a lovely problem. And my questions are, if you could just contrast a bit between the deliverable you're expecting versus something that exists today like Khan. Is it that you're going to be delivering a device, you're going to raise capital to move the device to the affected area?
Yeah, we're focusing on delivering a platform that is able to work in these challenging circumstances, so able to work offline, disconnected from anything else.
Right, and the platform, you would provide the device as well, or I'm just worried about the ability to actually get that there.
So the deployment is going to be done through partners. So we have various organizations already deployed in various locations, like Liberia and all the rest of it.
Right.
The X Prize themselves is also facilitating the project by providing the tablets themselves.
Okay.
And so we're focusing on the platform. It's based on Android and therefore based on pretty ubiquitous devices.
Thank you.
Can you speak a little bit to metrics of success for this project? Given that you mentioned many of the kids will never go to school,
Yeah.
How are you gauging how much they're actually learning? What would those markers be?
So the X Prize have got some pretty well-defined markers that they're going to be judging against. What we're going to be doing is we want, because the platform is going to be totally open, and we're working on this as an open project, we want the children to define how they are progressing, the children to identify what works and what doesn't work. And we're going to be using the X Prizes as part of the metrics for that.
And do you think a 6 or 7-year-old is capable of defining whether or not they're progressing adequately?
Well, we know that 6 or 7-year-olds are able to teach themselves anything. And the tests so far I've conducted are showing that these kids are willing and capable and interested in learning.
Thank you.
I guess my question's around the content, radical openness in terms of what information these kids are going to be exposed to. Is there, it wasn't clear to me in terms of what information they have already to learn, and more importantly, how are you going to, I don't want to say control, but how you're planning to manage future contributions, and as that information changes over time,
So at the moment we're approaching this, we want to approach this in a Wikipedia type model.
Okay.
We're going to be launching with content that's pre-existing, content that's currently being deployed in not Liberia, Malawi. So it's content that's localized for the kids in that area, and we're going to start off with using that content. But the idea that over time we're going to be approaching this with more of a Wikipedia type model, allowing anyone and any educator to develop content for this platform, and have them be able to then use the platform to deploy this to a wide selection of kids and be able to test whether or not their content works.
And I guess lastly, you mentioned the difficulty with electricity. I mean, most of these villages don't have running water.
Exactly,
how do you expect these children to plug in a device where they can't get water to drink?
So many of our partners already solve this problem by installing solar chargers. The X-Prize themselves are going to be installing solar chargers in all the villages that we're going to be testing out in, and we're going to be approaching it the same way.
Great. Thank you, Bodo. One last round of applause for Bodo Hoenen.